Hey guys, tonight we slip through the incense-thick corridors of a palace you've only ever seen in your dreams or nightmares. Imagine polished stone floors cooled by mountain air, bronze lamps flickering like fireflies, and somewhere deep within, a man said to hold the mandate of heaven. You're not a visitor here. You're not a guest. You've been selected, which, in the Qin court, is a blessing, and possibly a slow, elegant death. You arrive at Xianyang Palace just as twilight coats the walls in gold. The journey from your hometown, whether you were plucked from nobility or obscurity, has left your limbs sore and your mind racing. You're just one among many, carried in a lacquered litter through the palace gates. Officials barely glance at you. No one claps. No one announces your name. You are both nothing and everything. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. Always fun to see where everyone's tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The moment you step onto Palace Stone, your identity dissolves. Whatever name you came with, it might never be spoken again. You are now a lady in waiting, one of hundreds, maybe thousands, here to compete for the attention of a man you may never even see up close. The first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, is more legend than flesh. Some say he's immortal. Some say he eats powdered jade to keep the gods pleased. Historians still argue whether he was truly celibate in his final years or simply grew bored with his vast court. You aren't here to ask questions, though. You're here to survive. The air smells of lotus oil and burnt sandalwood. Above you, bronze chimes clink in the breeze. You're ushered into a chamber, spare but intimidating, where stern-faced eunuchs inspect your face, hands, even the shape of your feet. One pinches your cheek, another lifts your chin and mutters something about bone symmetry. Someone scribbles your name onto a bamboo slip and places it into a lacquered box, the first of many to determine your fate. Welcome to the Concubine draft. You are now property of the inner palace, which is less a building and more an entire hidden city within Xianyang. Outsiders will never see where you sleep, what you eat, or how you whisper at night. Some say it's a paradise of silks and spring water. Others call it a golden prison. Most girls who enter never leave. Not by choice. Anyway, your bed is a narrow mat. Your mirror is polished bronze. Your meal is rice, broth, and exactly 5 red dates. No more, no less. You eat in silence, eyes cast downward, speak without being spoken to, and you may spend your first night scrubbing tiles with vinegar. Or worse, your name might simply vanish from the morning roll. Still, there's awe around you. The carved beams above your head are painted with soaring phoenixes. The palace tiles glint with jade dust. Servants move like ghosts, silent and precise. Somewhere far ahead, deeper, in the maze of walls and courtyards, there is a man who could lift you to wealth and honor, or forget you entirely, or worse, remember you for the wrong reason. The girls around you are as varied as a scholar's brushstrokes. Some cry quietly behind their sleeves, others sit upright, eyes blazing with ambition. A few already know how to win a game of glances, bow just the right depth, flutter a fan like a secret. Yatum, on the other hand, are still trying to remember whether to bow left or right when the Empress Dowager is mentioned. Fun fact, The Qin Dynasty was the first to unify China under a central bureaucracy, but it also brought strict laws to the court. You'd think the concubine chambers were spared. Not exactly. One whisper of disloyalty, and your name could be struck from the silk scrolls forever. Historians debate whether Qin Shi Huang's concubines were truly chosen for beauty alone, or if political connections mattered more. You sleep that first night under a mosquito net, heart drumming like a war gong. Somewhere in the halls, a bell rings to mark the midnight watch. You can't tell if it's cold or if your nerves are just gnawing away your warmth. No one tells you how long you'll wait. It could be weeks, it could be forever, but you'll spend every hour perfecting your walk, your posture, your smile, and above all, your silence. Because here, in the dragon's den, silence is not weakness. It's a survival tactic. You wake before dawn to the faint rustle of silk slippers and a bell no larger than a peach pit chiming in the dark. It's the signal. Today is the first evaluation. That phrase alone is enough to curdle your blood. You roll up your mat, fold your blanket into crisp squares, and line up with the others, still groggy, still in yesterday's scent, under a pavilion where nothing but judgment lives. No one tells you the rules, but everyone knows them. You will be examined, not in the way a healer might inspect a wound, but the way a merchant might assess livestock. Your face, your hair, your teeth, everything is under scrutiny. You stand barefoot on cool stone tiles, while a scribe with eyebrows sharp as calligraphy lines takes notes on your height, gait, complexion, and whether or not you flinched when the dowager's gaze passed over you. Beauty here is an equation, and if you don't fit the sum, you're out of luck. A eunuch dressed in smoke-colored robes begins reading out names from the bamboo slips. One by one, girls step forward into the morning light. The first is porcelain pale with long eyelashes and a practiced smile. She's labeled first grade, and her eyes sparkle with concealed triumph. Another girl trips slightly during her bow. Fourth grade. The scribe mutters, almost as if spitting. When your name is called, you step forward like it's the edge of a cliff. You try to remember every single piece of advice whispered in the dormitory last night. Look humble but not timid. Keep your mouth soft. Don't blink too much. Easy, right? Your hair is assessed for thickness and luster. Tip: sesame oil helps. Your eyebrows are criticized for being slightly uneven. Your voice is tested, reading a line of ancient poetry, breath steady, tone clear. You manage to get through it without faltering, but just barely. Someone jots something on the bamboo. You don't get to peek. Then comes the mole check. Yes, the mole check. You are led behind a silk screen, where a matron in turquoise gloves inspects your arms, back, and neck for auspicious or unfortunate markings. In the chin court, a mole near the mouth means flirtation. One on the back could suggest disloyalty. Historians still debate whether this mole mythology came from earlier Zhou superstitions or just the creative boredom of palace ladies with too much time and too little power. You, thankfully, have a lone dot on your wrist. The matron frowns, says nothing, and waves you on. You're placed in third rank. Not bad, not excellent. You're officially a candidate of merit. That means you're still in the running, but you'll need to work harder than those in first and second. They'll get the best instructors, the silkiest robes, first pick at the jasmine oil. You'll get, well, rice. and a lot of shoulder pain from bowing at weird angles for hours a day. The hierarchy becomes very real, very fast. You begin to understand just how brutal the beauty game is here. It's not just about physical looks, it's about composure. A girl who cries too easily is labeled emotionally unstable. One who laughs too much, improper conduct. One poor girl had the misfortune of hiccuping during her introduction and is now assigned kitchen duty until further notice. It's worth remembering. The Emperor himself probably never sees this part. He doesn't personally choose who gets trained and who gets broom duty. No. That power lies with the officials, the eunuchs, and the Empress Dowager's shadowy ladies in command. They watch everything. They are the invisible gatekeepers, and their standards change like the wind. By the end of the week, you've memorized the facial rankings of 20 other girls, learned to braid your hair in 6 styles, and can recite 3 Confucian odes without tripping over your tongue. You've also developed a minor obsession with your nose bridge, which a fellow concubine casually called flat but charming. You laugh in the courtyard one evening with a girl from Chu who teaches you how to smile with your eyes. "Don't move your mouth," she says. "Just crinkle here." You try. You look haunted. She laughs harder. There's a moment of warmth, almost friendship, almost. And then a girl from the first rank walks by with her attendants, trailing sandalwood and smugness. Your friend straightens up instantly. The smile vanishes. You both bow deeply and in silence, and that fleeting connection disappears into the evening mist. This is not a place for friendship. Really. Affection is currency. Favor is armor. And everyone is watching. A quirky tidbit you pick up? Some concubines bribe the seamstresses to sew tiny, secret charms into the hems of their robes. Luck coins, dried plum seeds, even pressed petals inked with poems. Superstition is rampant. You hear whispers about a girl who mixed crane feather dust into her face powder, hoping to fly into the Emperor's dreams. It didn't work. She's now scrubbing floors in the bathhouse. You're getting the hang of it, though. Your posture improves. You learn which eyebrow to raise when asking a question, and how to pretend you're not asking a question at all. You've started to think like a mirror, reflecting what people want to see, offering no judgment of your own. Because in the Qin court, reflection is safer than reaction. And beauty? Beauty is not skin deep here. It's political. It's mathematical. And above all, it's dangerous. You don't eat for the first day of purification. Not really. A sip of broth at dawn, 3 lotus seeds at dusk, and the slow erosion of your own cravings in between. This is the beginning of the Jade Room rituals, a tradition older than most of the palace bricks, carried over from the warring states and polished into something equal parts mystic and miserable. They say it purifies you. They say it makes your skin glow. They also say a concubine once passed out mid-ritual and woke up demoted to laundry duty. So you keep your back straight, your eyes soft, and your stomach clenched. You are one of 30 girls chosen for this round of preparation. You shuffle into the Jade Room barefoot, the cool stone floor smoothed by centuries of anxious feet. The room smells of camellia oil and something bitter you can't name. Light filters through a lattice screen, striping the air like golden bars. An older woman, known only as Madame Q, oversees the ritual. She wears 7 rings, one for each decade she's lived inside these walls. No one speaks unless she nods. Her voice is sanded smooth with authority. "Today," she murmurs, We begin the internal cleansing. Great. Internal cleansing means drinking a tea so bitter it could probably remove paint. It's made from chrysanthemum, aged plum, and, allegedly, tiny shavings of jade. Historians still debate whether powdered minerals were truly used, or if the whole thing was a placebo wrapped in poetic packaging. Either way, it tastes like wet sorrow. You drink it without flinching. Next comes the bath. Not warm, not relaxing. The water is cold, steeped in goat's milk and crushed magnolia petals. You're submerged, scrubbed now, and wrapped in thin muslin like a dumpling. The scrubbing is thorough. They claim it will help your skin receive the emperor's gaze. You're just trying not to sneeze from the flower pollen stuck in your ears. Then the silence begins. You are not to speak for 3 days. Not even to your reflection. You are given a fan with embroidered symbols to communicate. Thirst, pain, yes, no, and one that means, I have nothing to say. You use the last one most often. This silence isn't just symbolic. It's a test. The attendants watch how you move, how you handle frustration, how gracefully you suppress the urge to scream when another girl takes the last clean robe. It's a parade of restraint, and it makes the days feel like weeks. Still, some moments are oddly peaceful. You sit in a courtyard of whispering bamboo, sun-warmed and silent, and realize how much of your old self has already been scrubbed away. No one calls you by your village name. No one cares what you like to eat or what jokes used to make you laugh. You are a vessel now, and the palace will fill you up or crack you apart. A curious detail, one of the attendants confides, with a gleam in her eye, that during the Han Dynasty, concubines were bathed in dew collected from sacred mountains. Of course, you're still stuck with goat's milk and vinegar, so it's hard to get excited about imperial upgrades. The nights during ritual week are the hardest. You sleep on bamboo mats, your hair undone, your stomach a hollow echo. Occasionally, you hear someone crying softly. No one is punished for it, but the crying girl usually disappears the next day. Sent back. The others whisper, but sent where? No one knows. One evening, you're summoned by a junior eunuch to the inner garden. This is unusual. The Jade Room girls aren't typically allowed outside the ritual zone. You follow him, barefoot and silent, past moonlit corridors until you reach a grove of plum trees, their blossoms falling like slow confetti. There, waiting, is Madame Q. She doesn't look at you, just gestures to a small stool and begins to comb your hair with a tortoiseshell comb. Each stroke is rhythmic, like the ticking of some ancient clock. Your scalp, she murmurs finally, tells me you overthink. Oh, you want to laugh, you want to cry. Instead, you nod, silently. She finishes the combing, wraps your hair into a neat coil, and sends you away with one final whisper. Even silence speaks in the court. Learn which silences are safe. Back in your chamber, you lie awake long after the others have slept, her words echoing. You think about the silences you left behind, the goodbyes you didn't say, the songs you didn't hum on the way here. You wonder if you'll ever hear your own voice again, outside of dreams. Historians often focus on the politics, the grandeur, the wars and decrees, but no scroll truly records what it's like to feel your identity dissolve one grain at a time, like sugar in hot tea. Rituals have a way of sanding people down into the shapes the empire needs. The Qin didn't just conquer kingdoms, They conquered the self. By the end of the third day, you've passed the trial. You're permitted to speak again, but your voice comes out like it belongs to someone else. You murmur thank you to the matron who hands you your new robes, soft blue, embroidered with cranes, a mark of progress. You survived the Jade Room, but survival is only the beginning. You thought making it through the Jade Room meant something, that you'd proven yourself, passed a test, unlocked a hidden door into favor or comfort. But no, all it does is land you into a new system, a new game with sharper pieces and more invisible traps. Welcome to the hierarchy. There's a word for it, whispered often but rarely explained. Fen. It means rank, but also division, like slices of a cake that only the emperor can eat. And you're somewhere near the crust. You're now officially listed as a Marin, a beautiful lady, not the lowest, not the highest, a junior concubine, which means you get better food and worse enemies. Above you are the Zhaoyi, the Guiran, the Shuyi, women with titles so flowery they sound like poetry. They wear heavier jewels and lighter smiles. Their eyes pass over you like you're not even furniture yet, just wallpaper. Even among the concubines, the stratification is maddening. It's not just seniority, it's lineage, imperial favor, family connections, the number of poems you've had dedicated to you, even the number of embroidered cranes on your sleeves. No one explains this. You simply learn, painfully, who bows to whom, who eats first, and whose sigh is enough to get you reassigned to chamber pot duty. You begin to understand why the palace is shaped like a labyrinth. It mirrors the harem's social map, twisting, layered, cruelly elegant. The Zhaoyi, one of the emperor's favored few, sits beneath a silk canopy with a zither in her lap and 6 handmaidens fanning her. She's only 25, but you feel like she's already seen a dozen girls like you rise and vanish. One glance from her and your posture straightens. One pause in her song and 10 heads turn. One of her attendants, a girl barely older than you, whispers with relish. She once had the emperor laugh twice in one evening. 2 laughs. This is a feat worth noting. Apparently, the hierarchy affects everything. Your food, your clothes, your walking path. Yes, you can't walk where someone above your rank might step. Literally. There are garden paths with different colored tiles, each shade assigned to a rank. Step on the wrong one, and you could be accused of aspirational insolence, which is a fancy way of saying you forgot your place. Historians still argue whether the Qin court truly enforced such rigid path-walking etiquette, or whether later dynasties projected their own obsessions onto earlier records. But when you see a girl slapped hard for accidentally trailing her sleeve into a senior consort's shadow, you don't argue. You're assigned to the East Wing, known for its quiet elegance and for housing the majority of third-rank consorts. Your room is modest, pale bamboo screens, a tiny bonsai pine on the sill, and a lacquered chest with your daily allotment of cosmetics. It's a step up from your former barracks. But the walls feel thinner. Every night you hear muffled arguments, suppressed sobs, or worse, complete silence, which somehow scares you more. The palace gossip chain is faster than any courier. It travels on the breath of courtyards, passed from hairdresser to attendant to bathhouse servant. Then, somehow lands back at your feet in the form of a knowing glance, or a strategically timed compliment. There's word that one of the new Marin was accidentally served spoiled almond soup. She's recovering. Probably you start counting favors. Who lent you hairpins? Who warned you not to wear that pale green robe when Lady Zheng is around? Who didn't offer condolences when your sandal straps snapped mid-ceremony? Every interaction becomes a little ledger in your mind. Not malicious, just necessary. A quirky tidbit you pick up. Some concubines coat their fingernails with crushed pearls, soaked in rice water to make them shimmer faintly in torchlight. Not because they'll be noticed, but because someone might notice. Or might be told, or might want to be told. Image matters here, even if no one sees it but a servant girl and a ghost. One afternoon, you're summoned to the etiquette chamber, where you practice bowing to a series of empty chairs representing different ranks. There's a special bow for each, a low kneel for the Empress, a precise 2-second pause for Guiron, a soft wrist flick for fellow Marin. If you're ever unsure, just hold your breath and smile faintly. That works 9 times out of 10. You're also taught how to eat in front of someone more important than you, slowly, with tiny bites, but always finishing your meal. Leaving anything is considered ungrateful. Unless the Empress leaves her food, then everyone leaves food. Even the soup. Yes, it's confusing. No, it's not up for debate. You learn to survive by watching how the favored ones walk with effortless grace and how the unfavored ones try too hard. You study how to stand out without standing up, to sparkle without shining too brightly. One night, in the garden, you see a Jiaoyi cry silently behind her fan. You don't ask why. You simply lower your gaze, bow, and step back into the shade of your own rank. There's no announcement, no trumpet, no dramatic summons through the echoing halls, just a quiet scroll, pinned to the inner gate with a jade-tipped hairpin. You're not supposed to run to check the rota, but you do. Everyone does. It's the only thing that matters this week. The imperial bedchamber schedule, written in cinnabar ink on silk, each night of the month carefully assigned. Some names appear more than once, some names are gone, and some, like yours, appear for the very first time. Your heart stops, then starts again, much louder. You have been summoned. The eunuch on duty nods slightly when he sees your reaction. First time, he says dryly, try not to trip. The Emperor has no patience for bruised faces. You nod, too stunned to speak. It's like being cast in a play you've never rehearsed, except the stage is the inner chamber of the most powerful man in China, and the audience is history itself. Now begins the preparation. You are moved to a private suite for the day, an honor chamber with sandalwood panels, silk bedding, and a mirror that actually reflects your entire face. A handmaid brushes your hair for an hour, each stroke designed to polish your nerves into submission. Another paints your lips with crushed cinnabar and flower wax. You're massaged with camellia oil until your limbs go soft and your thoughts go softer. You're told, don't speak unless spoken to. Don't show fear. Don't act clever. Don't cry. 4 rules. Easy to remember. Impossible to follow perfectly. That evening, an older eunuch leads you by lantern light through the winding corridors. Every step echoes. You feel less like a girl and more like a letter being delivered. Sealed. Silent. Precious. And terrifying. The Emperor's private wing is quiet. Not dead quiet, just a heavy, silk-laden hush. You pass jade screens carved with phoenixes, ivory pillars, and a courtyard pond lit with floating lotus lamps. It feels unreal. Too perfect, too curated, like a dream designed by someone with infinite power and no one left to question him. You wait on a cushion just outside the chamber doors. One of the eunuchs announces your name in a voice that sounds like a sigh. The doors open. He's not what you imagined. Qin Shi Huang is not draped in gold or perched on a jade throne. He sits on a platform, draped in simple dark robes, reading a bamboo scroll by lamplight. His hair is tied back with a single silver pin. His expression is unreadable. Years of command have carved away softness. You bow so low your forehead brushes the polished floor. He doesn't speak for a long time, doesn't even look directly at you. You wonder if this is the real test. Silence. Again. Then he waves a hand, and you're led to sit, a respectable distance away. Tea is brought. The scent of osmanthus fills the air. You breathe shallowly. He asks where you're from. You answer, voice barely audible. He asks what poetry you favor. You recite one trembling line. He nods, not in approval, more like confirmation that you're not a complete fool. Then he sets the scroll aside, and the conversation stops. This is the moment the palace whispers about, the moment that can change your fate, elevate your rank, or erase your name entirely. And yet, it feels so quiet, so strange. You realize that despite the opulence, the power, the fear, this is just a man, sitting in a room, watching a girl try not to shiver. Historians still argue whether the first emperor indulged in his harem or was too consumed by conquest and immortality to care. Some say his favorites were decided more by politics than passion. Others claim he kept women like treasures, untouched but admired. You are now part of that mystery. After a time, he dismisses you with a small nod, not cruel, not kind, just final. You are led out as silently as you arrived. The handmaid who meets you back at your suite tries not to ask anything. But the look in her eyes says everything. Did it go well? Will you be summoned again? Did he smile? Did he say anything memorable? You don't answer. You don't know how. Because the strangest part of it all is this: the night you dreamed of, the chance to rise, the moment the court clause. 4. It wasn't magical. It wasn't romantic. It was oddly hollow, as if you had entered a world of marble and mist, only to realize how cold stone can be. A quirky custom you learn the next morning? The emperor is always informed afterward whether a consort was pleased and respectful. It's recorded, in code, in the palace logs. Some girls learn to perform just enough satisfaction to be noted as harmonious. Others are marked as neutral. A rare few are flagged disruptive, which usually leads to reassignment to the embroidery chambers. Your record is blank. No notes, no reprimands, no praise. You are unremarkable. And in the court of Qin, being unremarkable might be the safest rank of all. You begin to notice it after your audience, how the walls seem to have ears, how the servants glance sideways when you speak, even in passing, how someone always seems to be brushing near your room at odd hours, pretending to water a plant or sweep an already spotless floor. You've entered the second game now, the quiet one, the one played in whispers and sighs. Welcome to the court of spies. It starts small, a misplaced hairpin, a rumor about someone's sandal size. Then you overhear a girl from the southern wing sobbing because her favorite silk sash vanished. The next day, she's reprimanded for unseemly noise. How did the Empress's chamberlain know about it so quickly? Easy. The handmaid who comforts you today might be writing your secrets down tonight. Every court in history has its network of informants. But in the inner palace of Qin Shi Huang, that network is so dense it might as well be the air itself. Historians believe that the eunuchs, especially those close to the emperor, ran an intricate web of reports and coded communications. Some even suggest that every 10th servant was assigned a whisper log, submitting daily updates on the behavior, words, and moods of the women in their care. You learn fast. Never whisper anything you wouldn't want embroidered into a scroll. It changes you. You stop trusting the girls who smile too easily. You start checking your slippers for needles. You murmur compliments that mean nothing and swallow thoughts that could mean everything. If someone shares gossip, you nod politely, then forget it on purpose, unless forgetting it would seem suspicious. It's a maze. And you're the mouse learning which crumbs are poisoned. One afternoon, while rehearsing court poetry in the shade, a consort named Lady Wren quietly slides beside you. She's older, higher ranked, and looks like she hasn't slept in a week. She fans herself without looking at you. Her voice is silk-wrapped iron. You're not very good at pretending you don't know things. She says. You don't answer. She smiles faintly. Be careful. The walls have better memory than the emperor. She leaves without waiting for a reply. That night, you find a folded note in your robe. Blank parchment, but scented, faint plum blossom. A warning, maybe, a test. You burn it without reading further, just in case. And just like that, you've joined the game. There are no allies here, only temporary alignments. Sometimes, a girl will accidentally mention another's jealousy, or laugh too loudly when the wrong name is said. You hear of one poor concubine who offered an honest compliment. Why, your song last night was so soft, I barely heard it. And within days, the singer was summoned to explain her laziness in performance. You sharpen your instincts like a blade. You keep your tone pleasant, your expressions mild, your movements deliberate. You fold your hands when you speak. You apologize for things you haven't done. You never raise your voice. You also develop a habit. Before sleeping, you whisper a question into your sleeve. Nothing personal, just nonsense. The next day, if someone echoes your words, you'll know your room leaks. One morning, your comb is missing. By itself. This means nothing. But later that week, a eunuch from the disciplinary office stops you and mentions rumors of vanity. You bow, apologize, offer to sweep the south corridor. The next morning, your comb is back. Another custom, when you offer food to a superior, you never taste it first. That would imply you feared poison, but if you don't taste it and something happens, you could be blamed for not checking. So most girls learn a simple trick, pressing the pad of the thumb into the dumpling. If the skin breaks too easily, it might not be rice flour at all. You attend banquets with a smile and leave with a migraine. You start to understand that surveillance isn't just physical, it's emotional. A girl who seems too serene might be labeled detached. One who weeps too often is unstable. But if you're never emotional, suspiciously calculated, there's no perfect role, just the one you improvise until no one notices you anymore. It's exhausting. This paranoia by candlelight, but oddly, it makes the few quiet moments sweeter. A handmaid humming off key while brushing your hair. A rare afternoon where no one glares at anyone. A game of Xianyang played with a mute girl from the western corridor who only nods in response. You lose every time. She smiles anyway, and then one night, Something strange. You catch a flicker, a silhouette behind a lattice screen in the bathing chamber. It vanishes before you can make it out. Later, a slip of silk appears under your blanket, embroidered with a single character. Listen. Historians still argue whether the surveillance in the Qin harem was this intense, or if later accounts exaggerated it to reflect the court's broader obsession with control. But whether or not the walls could truly speak, you know one thing for certain. Someone is always listening, even when no one seems to be there, even when you're alone with your thoughts, even when those thoughts are the last real thing you still own. You learn very quickly that in the Qin court, even your scent is political. It begins the moment you receive your first box of imperial perfumes, tiny lacquered pots in a chest lined with white silk. Each one is labeled in elegant calligraphy: red sandalwood, gardenia, resin, osmanthus, 5-spice cassia. You think it's a gift? It's not. It's an unspoken command. Pick wisely and wear it well. You're told, never wear the same scent 2 days in a row. Never outshine a senior. Never choose a fragrance associated with the Empress unless you have a death wish wrapped in jasmine. There's a whole scent hierarchy. You realize peony and rose are for first-rank women. Plum blossom is neutral. Musk is for those on the rota. Mint is for shame or illness. And woe betide the concubine who wears something too spicy during a summer banquet. So you spend afternoons sniffing bottles and wondering which emotion you're supposed to embody today. Want to seem pure? Try lotus, sophisticated, amber, mysterious but obedient. A touch of orris root, just behind the ears. There's a joke whispered among handmaids. You don't wear perfume to please the emperor. You wear it to survive his consorts. Because here's the real secret. Scent is a signal that you belong, that you know the game, that you are fluent in the invisible language of status and seduction. But perfume is just the opening note. You're soon invited to an informal poetry salon, an evening of light culture. As the announcement reads, really, it's a gladiator match in silken rhymes. One by one. Concubines recite verses they've memorized or, if bold, compose themselves. The favored ones sit closer to the fire, their cheeks glowing. The rest sit in shadows, hoping no one asks them to speak. You choose a safe Tang poem, melancholy, restrained. Your voice barely shakes. A few nods. No whispers. That's a win. Later, a girl from Chu plays the zither. Her fingers glide over the strings like dragonflies over water. You think she'll be praised, until a higher-ranked consort leans forward and says softly, "How quaint. We used to do that in the nursery." The room stills. The girl's hands falter. She never plays again. You learn to speak in layered compliments. Saying you've gained weight is an insult, unless you add such fullness in the cheeks. How imperial. Then it's possibly flattering. Possibly, saying nothing at all can be worse. Even the way you walk is strategic. You practice until your steps are small. Your sleeves float. Your gaze stays just above eye level, enough to seem demure but not dazed. The wrong posture could be read as arrogance, laziness, or, the worst crime of all, trying too hard. One morning, you discover a small gift on your pillow, a hairpin shaped like a butterfly, carved from bone. No note, no name. You hesitate. Gifts without origin are dangerous. They can be tokens or traps. You give it to your handmaid, telling her to wear it. The next day, a different girl is scolded for accepting favors from rival factions. You both keep your heads down. Another day, a eunuch accidentally leaves a scroll in your chamber. It contains a copied verse by an anonymous hand. Even the moon envies the favored shadow. Even the wind listens to her sighs. You don't know if it's praise, a threat, or simply bad poetry. You burn it anyway. You're learning. A quirky, but deeply unsettling, tidbit. Some ambitious concubines commission secret fragrance blends, untraceable combinations meant to subtly remind the emperor of a memory, a person, even a season. There's a tale of one woman who mixed the scent of pine resin, roasted barley, and winter plum. She was summoned 3 times that month. No one ever figured out why, but everyone remembered the smell. Historians still debate the accuracy of these tales. Some argue that the power of perfume was exaggerated in later dynastic records, romanticized to make palace life seem more mysterious. But when you watch 3 women nearly come to blows over a bottle of rare clove oil, you stop caring whether the historians agree. Everything in the court is a kind of coded warfare, and your weapons are subtle: words, posture, glances, scent. Sometimes you wonder if the emperor even notices. Sometimes you wonder if he even wants to. 'Cause here's the oddest thing: despite the endless effort, the perfumes, the poetry, the smiles, you haven't been summoned again. Not once. Maybe he forgot. Maybe he wasn't impressed. Or maybe, in a court where politics wear rouge and sandals, you've been cast as background decoration, harmless, unnoticed, safe, and that might be your most powerful disguise yet. You watch the silk scroll with the same reverence others give to omens in the sky. It is brought out by 2 eunuchs, unrolled slowly, held aloft like a royal decree, which, in some ways, it is the emperor's nightly rota, a single sheet of woven silk that determines everything. No horns, no announcements, just names written in cinnabar, in brushstrokes so delicate you can barely read them. The scroll is hung in the East Pavilion each morning, just after breakfast. And each morning a crowd forms. You learn to scan it with indifference. At least, that's the performance. Inside, your stomach tightens like a knotted ribbon. Not there. Not again. 3 weeks since your first summons. 3 weeks of silence. It starts to itch in your chest. Not fear, exactly, but something close. In a court where attention is currency, being forgotten feels like slow death. A girl near you gasps. Her name is listed, for the 3rd time in 10 days. She blushes prettily, and her attendants try to hide their envy behind stiff smiles. She's moved up to 2nd rank by afternoon. You're still waiting. The scroll rules everything. It tells you which woman the emperor will see, for how long, and where, and sometimes who he didn't choose. Names that once appeared daily begin to fade. One day, a consort's name is gone entirely. No explanation, no reassignment, just absence. Maybe she left, someone whispers. No one leaves. Another says, and that ends the conversation. You start to notice patterns. The emperor prefers even-numbered days for his older favorites. Odd days are more experimental. New consorts tend to appear on the full moon. Some say it has to do with yin and yang balance. Others say it's just mood. Historians still debate how involved the first emperor really was in his own bedchamber scheduling. Some claim his ministers managed the list to suit political needs, offering access as a reward to powerful clans. Others argue that Qin Shi Huang was famously detached, choosing by whim, dream, or divination. In your world, the why doesn't matter, only the if. You are not passive, though none of you are. Behind the scenes, women maneuver like generals in embroidered armor. You learn that one consort's family sent a new shipment of rare jade to the court. 2 days later, she's back on the scroll. Another is rumored to have written a poem so beautiful it made a visiting scholar weep. She is summoned that night. You're not sure what's true. You just know that nothing happens by accident. The pressure begins to warp your days. You time your walks to coincide with the Emperor's corridor patrols, hoping for a glance. You choose your colors more carefully. Never red, that's too bold. Never white, too plain. Maybe soft blue, with a hairpin shaped like a crane. Cranes are lucky. Cranes are wise. Maybe he likes birds. A handmaid, pitying your anxiety, shares a quirky ritual. Place 3 lotus seeds under your pillow and think of the Emperor's name before sleep. If he dreams of you, they say, he will seek you. You try it once. Your dream features a talking goose and a stolen teapot. No Emperor. You stop after that. Then, one evening, something shifts. You are summoned, but not to the Emperor. To the Empress's quarters. The Empress rarely interacts directly with lower-ranked concubines. Her domain is vast. Her authority silent and absolute. When her messenger arrives, you nearly drop your comb. You're led through a hidden corridor, one you didn't know existed. The air is cooler here, scented with vetiver and ash. Her chambers are dim, lit with hanging lanterns that cast golden halos on the walls. She sits on a raised dais, serene and still, her hair a sculpted mountain of obsidian pins and silver chains. You kneel so fast you nearly topple forward. She says nothing for a long while. Then, you've not been summoned again? You flinch. Of course she knows. He's selective. You whisper. No, she says. He is distracted, but others are watching. That lands heavier than you expect. Others, ministers, scribes. Even foreign dignitaries occasionally hear rumors of the Emperor's preferences. Being chosen is more than pleasure, it's position. Do you want to be seen? She asks. You don't answer. It's not really a question. She waves her hand, dismissing you. You bow so low your knees ache. As you leave, her voice calls softly, wear green at the next banquet. Peony silk. Not plum. It isn't a suggestion. That night, your name still doesn't appear on the scroll. But something has changed. You feel it. The scroll rules the nights, but the shadows decide who appears on it. You don't walk to the inner chambers. You are carried. It's ceremonial, of course, tradition, prestige, and possibly to keep you from running away. 2 eunuchs lift your curtain litter under moonlight, while 4 handmaids trail behind in absolute silence. You cannot see them but you hear them. The soft rustle of silk, the faint jingle of jade bangles, the echo of your own shallow breathing. You're back on the scroll. It took 7 weeks. 1 empress's hint. 4 hairpin changes. 6 new poems memorized. And an entirely different version of yourself. Softer, more careful, quieter. But here you are. The litter rocks gently through the palace maze, under curved rooftops, and ink-black skies. A drum marks the 8th hour. You pass the moon gate, its silver light catching the gold embroidery on your robe. You wore green, like the Empress said. The peony silk shimmers faintly, and you've dabbed just the right amount of clove oil behind your ears. No one told you how surreal this moment would feel, how utterly removed from real life, like floating toward a dream you're not sure you want to reach. Eventually, the litter stops. You're helped down onto polished stone and guided through a narrow corridor. No words are spoken. The eunuchs are expressionless. They might as well be statues in motion. Then the doors open. The emperor's inner chambers are unlike anything you've seen. The floor is warmed stone, inlaid with a dragon in black jade. The room glows gold from low lanterns, and the air carries a subtle scent of sandalwood and pine. He is already there. Qin Shi Huang sits at a low table, robe folded precisely, sipping tea as if the empire weren't waiting outside his door. He doesn't smile. He doesn't scowl. He just looks at you like he's reading a complicated scroll, trying to decipher what you offer. You kneel, not too fast, just the right depth. You feel the weight of your hairpins and the absurd lightness of your limbs. Your whole body is trembling slightly. You pray it doesn't show. He gestures to a cushion. You sit. The room is quiet. He speaks. Do you still remember the poem you recited last season? You blink. You do. Of course you do. You recite it now, smoothly, gently, each word weighted with care. When you finish, he nods. That's all. No applause. No smile. But the nod is enough. In this court, it's practically a standing ovation. Then, without preamble, he begins to speak, not about you, but about maps. He tells you of mountain roads in the western provinces, of the need to repair trade routes before winter, of jade from Khotan, of how the wind moves differently near the southern rivers. You nod along, offering the occasional thoughtful hum. You are not expected to contribute. You are expected to listen, beautifully. Still, you catch a rhythm in his speech, a kind of measured loneliness. He's not confiding, but neither is he commanding. It feels human, tired, even. Historians still argue whether Qin Shi Huang truly sought companionship from his concubines, or whether these encounters were purely formal, tools of dynastic legacy and political management. Some suggest he used these evenings to think aloud, treating consorts as elegant wallpaper to bounce ideas off. You don't mind. Wallpaper doesn't get executed. Eventually, he gestures again, this time to the tea tray. You pour for him, precisely 3/4 full. The cup doesn't clink. Your hands are steady now. He notices, or maybe you imagine it. He says nothing further. An hour passes, then 2. He finally waves a hand. You bow deeply and are escorted out. You don't speak until you're back in your room, hands shaking. Your maid is waiting, eyes wide. How was it? You don't know how to answer, because here's the truth. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't terrifying. It was delicate, strange. Like standing on a bridge between two worlds, the one where you matter and the one where you don't. And yet, the next morning, you learn something astonishing. Your name is on the scroll again. 2 nights from now, you did something right. A quirky palace rule. A consort summoned twice in a single season is gifted a new silk robe. Yours arrives that evening. Pale silver, embroidered with tiny clouds. No one explains why clouds, but in this place, metaphors float heavier than facts. That night, lying in your chamber under a canopy of gauze, you hear a distant flute. Someone is playing alone. A soft melody. It rises and falls like breath. You close your eyes. You made it back. You made it into the rota, You are no longer invisible, but visibility, as you'll soon learn, is its own kind of danger. The next morning, a maid arrives with peach juice, cold towels, and gently, almost casually, the news that your pulse is a little quick. She's smiling, but you can feel the weight of her subtext. You might be pregnant. You laugh. Then you stop laughing. Then you sit very still. In the Qin court, pregnancy is power, not metaphorical power, not symbolic status, real, tangible, dangerous power. A concubine who bears a child, especially a son, becomes more than decoration. She becomes a potential mother of dynasties. And potential mothers attract attention, not all of it friendly. Within an hour, you're ushered into the court physician's wing, an austere chamber where scholars with ice-cold fingers take your pulse in absolute silence. One holds your wrist, another studies your face, a third scribbles something onto silk. You're not told the results. You are simply sent back to your chamber with upgraded meals. That afternoon, your rice is flecked with ginkgo nuts and dried jujube, an unmistakable sign. The handmaid pretends not to notice the difference. You pretend to be calm. The next morning, your name vanishes from the scroll. Not unusual. They always wait and see. The first few days pass in a fog of nervous anticipation. You're watched constantly now. You're not allowed cold fruit. You're discouraged from bathing alone. Someone adds a braided rope outside your door, a quiet symbol that you're under imperial observation. Girls start bowing deeper to you, not all of them sincerely. Lady Joe, a second-rank consort, sends you a plate of persimmons with a poem about fertile autumn branches. It's beautifully written. It's also probably a trap. You don't eat them. You feed them to the garden koi and hope they don't float belly up. A week passes. The physicians return. This time, they bring a midwife. And now you know you are pregnant. You are terrified. Because here's the twisted reality. While pregnancy elevates you, it also paints a target on your back. Everyone knows what's at stake. A child means future favors, titles, land grants, ancestral tablets. And that kind of reward, it invites sabotage. Historians often write of imperial concubines as passive figures, beautiful and delicate and obedient. But when you're carrying a life that might one day wear a crown, you start to feel more hunted than honored. There are whispered stories, always denied, of girls who miscarried after slipping on smooth floors, of teas mistakenly brewed with safflower, of sudden illnesses that swept through only one chamber. You stop drinking anything you haven't watched brewed. You wear shoes with gripped soles, even indoors. You practice smiling in the mirror every morning, so no one sees your fear. And still, the rumors spread. She's not even of noble blood, one says. She won't make it to the 4th month, says another. One morning, you wake to find a tiny bloodstain on your robe. It turns out to be a crushed berry, but by then, your hands are already shaking. A quirky practice. The Qin court believed certain talismans protected unborn children. You are given one, a tiny jade cicada tied on a red cord, and instructed to wear it near your belly at all times. It keeps the child's spirit from drifting, the handmaid says, matter-of-factly. You do not take it off, even to bathe. The Empress, surprisingly, summons you again. She says very little, just sips tea and looks at you with her calm, ageless expression. Then she says, You are not the first to carry his child, but you could be the last. You don't know what that means. She doesn't elaborate. She simply stands and leaves you alone in a room filled with painted cranes and the scent of dying camellias. Later that week, your chamber is moved closer to the garden wing, quieter, more secluded. For your peace, they say, but you know better. They're watching to see if the child survives, and whether you do. Historians still debate the fates of Qin Shi Huang's children. Records are sparse, conflicting. Some names vanish. Some appear in multiple tombs. It's unclear how many of his concubines bore sons, or what happened to them. The records were curated, cleansed, rewritten by later dynasties. You are now a footnote waiting to happen. At night, you press your palm gently to your stomach. Nothing stirs. It's too early, but you imagine a flicker, a spark, something inside that might anchor you here, keep you from being forgotten or replaced, because in this court, nothing is more powerful or more perilous than the possibility of new life. She is always smiling, even when she's not. You first meet Empress Zheng during your early etiquette training, long before your name ever graced the rota. She glided past the line of bowed girls, her robes whispering like wind in a pine forest. Not a hair out of place, not a gesture wasted. Now, as the emperor's concubine, pregnant, watched, whispered about, you find yourself more often in her shadow, sometimes literally. She never raises her voice. She doesn't have to. One slight tilt of her chin, and the entire garden holds its breath. The silence around her is not emptiness. It's precision, authority made flesh, and you are very much beneath her gaze. Being pregnant does not protect you from her. If anything, it invites her attention. One morning, you're summoned to her tea house, not her formal reception hall, her private garden pavilion, where she takes tea surrounded by white koi and cold chrysanthemums. This is either a death sentence or a test. You arrive trembling in your best robe, green again, because it worked last time. Your handmaid fusses with your hair until the last possible moment. Then you step inside. She does not greet you. She simply pours a second cup of tea and gestures for you to sit. I hear you've been ill in the mornings, she says. You nod carefully. I find ginger helps, she adds, then sips her cup. But not too much. It's warming. Too much warmth invites instability. It's impossible to know if that's advice or a warning. She doesn't ask about the emperor. She doesn't ask about your health. She asks if you've read the classic of filial piety. You say yes. She asks which line you remember most. You panic briefly. Then you say, to serve one's parents is to serve the state. She nods. The meeting ends. You are dismissed with a small lacquered box of candied kumquats. They taste like frost. From then on, her presence trails behind your every move. Her attendants appear where you don't expect them, watching you eat, watching you sleep, watching you not quite smile at a joke you weren't meant to hear. One afternoon, while walking in the lotus courtyard, a breeze lifts your sleeve slightly. You feel a sharp pinch just above your wrist. You reach down. A needle, no longer than a fingernail, sticks out from your robe's inner seam. You don't flinch. You don't speak. You keep walking. That night, your robes are all replaced with new ones, delivered without explanation. Historians still debate how much power Qin empresses actually held. Legally, the emperor's word was supreme, But behind the scenes, the Empress often shaped palace affairs, especially when it came to succession. With no clearly named heir, each pregnancy became a political landmine, and Empress Zheng is a master cartographer. She has no sons of her own, at least, none that survived. The records are unclear. Some say she once miscarried. Others hint at a boy who died in infancy. Either way, your pregnancy does more than make you important. It makes you a threat. Yet she is never cruel, never rude, always calm, always poised. She sends you broth on cold days. She sends a scarf when your cough lingers too long. Everything she does can be read two ways: kindness or choreography. A consort named Lady Qian jokes once, quietly, nervously, that the Empress is like a swan, serene on the surface, legs kicking furiously underwater. That night, Lady Qian's courtyard is assigned for night soil duty. No one jokes after that. You take to speaking as little as possible in public. Your handmaids are rotated weekly. A precaution, they say. You don't bother learning their names. You hum a few bars of an old song when you're alone, just to remind yourself you still have a voice. A quirky custom you observe. When passing the Empress's corridor, all concubines must bow, even if she isn't there. The act itself is the ritual. Presence is irrelevant. Eventually, she summons you again. This time, no tea, no bench. She simply says, "A boy would change everything." You nod. She continues, "And not just for you." Then she smiles. That same smile, the one that isn't a smile at all. You do not sleep that night. You lie on your side, staring at the jade cicada near your belly, wondering if it's true, if this little flicker inside you is a blessing or a blade. Because if you rise too high, you will cast a shadow on a woman who has never allowed herself to be dimmed, and shadows in the palace, they disappear. There is no such thing as a lazy day in the harem, not when your survival depends on being interesting. You thought beauty was the currency, that your smile, your skin, your lineage would be enough. But here, performance is everything. If you can't charm, distract, provoke, or enchant, you're as good as invisible, or worse, expendable. So today, you're rehearsing. Again, you kneel on a silk cushion in the Hall of Pleasant Sounds, your arms aching as you hold the pipa just right. Your instructor, a former court musician with zero patience and at least 5 grudges, corrects your wrist angle with a flick of his fan. "Too stiff," he says. "Try again. Pretend you've tasted moonlight." You have no idea what that means, but you try anyway. You pluck. You miss a note. You repeat. Again. Again. It's not about music. Not really. It's about being seen making the effort, about appearing graceful in struggle, about convincing someone that you are worthy of being chosen again. And you're not the only one. Across the hall, another consort is dancing. She twirls in flowing peach robes, her sleeves like twin dragons trailing behind her. You notice the slight wobble in her ankle. She's recovering from a fever, but she dares not sit out. The court doesn't remember excuses, only absence. Elsewhere, a girl recites poetry in 3 dialects, one mispronounced character, and she'll be labeled lacking polish. That label sticks like a stain. Because the truth is, you're all being graded, even when no one says so. Even laughter is rehearsed. A joke must be light, never crude. A pun is acceptable if literary. No raised eyebrows, no wide mouths. Giggle like a waterfall, not a thunderclap. You learn to paint scrolls, not because anyone will hang them, but because calligraphy reveals your temperament. Heavy strokes suggest anger. Skipped ink implies laziness. One girl was demoted for leaving a brush out of alignment on her desk. Lack of inner harmony, they said. You start to believe that too. A quirky harem fact. It's considered vulgar to display overt talent. You must be skilled but humble, flawless but surprised when complimented. It's a delicate performance. I didn't know you were watching. Must shimmer from your every gesture. One evening, you're summoned to perform for a small court banquet, not for the emperor himself, but for his senior ministers and select family members. A high honor, a high risk. You're to play the pipa and recite a verse from the Book of Songs. You rehearse until your fingers throb. Then, hours before the performance, your string breaks. Panic. Your handmaid runs to fetch a replacement, but it's too late to warm up again. You took her and you make one tiny mistake. You invert 2 lines of verse. No one flinches. No one speaks. But the next morning, your invitation to the Lantern Festival is rescinded. A warning. You weren't entertaining enough. Historians often gloss over this layer of palace life, the relentless, exhausting entertainment economy. They speak of concubines as lovers or pawns, rarely as performers under pressure, but here, every zither note, every fan flick, every eyelash bat is a calculated risk. You begin to collect small tricks. You learn which flowers wilt fastest in arrangements. Never use them. You memorize stories from distant provinces and sprinkle them into conversation. You master a riddle game played in whispers during long banquets. You write a poem about snow falling on cinnabar tiles and leave it accidentally in the Empress's path. She never comments, but your standing remains unchanged. Even your posture must be rehearsed. A crooked neck during embroidery is interpreted as melancholy. A sigh during calligraphy is seen as dissatisfaction. So you practice how to breathe, how to blink. You start holding your sleeve over your mouth when you smile, just in case someone's watching. Because someone always is. And then one day, a girl disappears. No announcement, no rumors, just gone. Her room is emptied by dusk. Her name is removed from the scrolls. You ask nothing. You say nothing. But your handmaid whispers that the girl once refused to dance at a moon viewing. She claimed her ankle was sore. You begin practicing fan dances after dinner. You smile when you're too tired to think. You compose haiku in your dreams. And you realize this is not a palace. This is a theater. And you are not a person. You are a part in a play. A beautifully dressed, perfectly poised character. And you will keep playing her until the curtain drops. You begin hearing things at night, not the usual murmur of wind through pine or the faint clink of pottery from the servants' quarters. No, these are whispers, curling through the silk walls of your chamber like incense smoke, too soft to understand, too persistent to ignore. Sometimes it's a single voice, sometimes 2, sometimes nothing but breath. You lie awake, heart tapping like a spoon on porcelain, wondering if it's real. It is. You learn this the hard way. One morning, the girl in the chamber beside yours doesn't come out for roll call. By lunch, her handmaid is gone too. That evening, her room is assigned to someone new, and her belongings, hairpins, slippers, even her inkstone, are burned. She was overheard, someone whispers, talking in her sleep. Someone else says. Historians often write about the Qin dynasty's obsession with order, its legal codes, its standardization, its bureaucracy, but what they rarely mention is the paranoia it bred. Inside the inner palace, that paranoia becomes a living thing. It wraps around you at night, like the gauze canopy over your bed, soft, clinging, inescapable. You stop talking in your sleep, or at least, you hope you do. To be safe, you begin chewing a sliver of licorice root before bed, a quirky remedy you hear from an older maid. It numbs the tongue just slightly, just enough to keep words tucked in. You're not sure if it works, but superstition is survival now. The whispers persist. One night, you press your ear to the wall. You hear a girl repeating a single phrase over and over. The peach blossoms are late this year. It's not poetry. It's a code. You don't ask what it means. Another night, the whispers stop entirely. Instead, there's a thump, a muffled cry, then silence. You sit awake until sunrise, staring at the shadows of the lattice screen, wondering if you've just witnessed something real or something designed to keep everyone in line. You begin noticing how others avoid certain halls after dusk, how certain candles are never lit. There's a story about a wing of the palace where the former empress used to live. They say her spirit still walks it, but more likely, it's just the place they take, the inconvenient ones. You avoid it anyway. Your dreams become strange. You see doors opening where there should be none. Voices calling you by your old name, the one no one uses anymore. You wake with your hand over your belly, uncertain if you were protecting your unborn child or trying to keep it from escaping. By day, everything looks normal. Birdsong in the garden, butter lamps in the hallway, courtiers murmuring over scrolls, eunuchs shuffling with lacquered trays, the usual routines, the usual quiet nods, but the atmosphere is thinner, like everyone is holding their breath, like the palace is remembering something it doesn't want to speak aloud. The empress begins hosting purity rituals again, small, exclusive ceremonies where a few select concubines burn incense and chant blessings for the emperor's health. You're invited to one. You attend, of course, but the mood is eerie. No one makes eye contact. The incense smells wrong, too bitter, too sharp. You leave with a headache and a hollow feeling in your chest. That night, your handmaid finds a needle under your pillow. Again, this time longer. Bronze-tipped. She pretends it isn't there. You nod, and so do you. You start sleeping with a jade pendant clutched in your hand. Not for comfort, for noise. If it drops, you'll wake. Hopefully. A few days later, one of the zither girls faints in the garden. Exhaustion, the physicians say. But the tea she drank was meant for someone else. You saw the cup switch. You say nothing. Because you've realized the truth. The palace is haunted. Not by ghosts. By the echoes of fear. By all the things that cannot be said but are felt in every glance, every silence, every pause between sentences. You are learning to speak without speaking, to raise your fan just so, to glance left when you mean no, to breathe twice before answering anything at all. Your words are currency, your silences are shields, and through it all, the whispers return. One voice you hear more than once. Low, calm, female. She says, "Don't trust the moonlight, just that." You never figure out who it is. You only know that since hearing it, you've started closing your shutters at night, even in summer. even when the heat chokes your breath. Because in the Qin court, secrets aren't whispered to share them. They're whispered to see who listens. The first rule of alliances in the palace is they're never real. The second rule is you need one anyway. You start small. A shared glance during a poetry lesson, a quiet warning in the corridor, a note left in a slipper, not today, stay indoors. You don't sign your name. She doesn't need to. The girl is Lady Min, a third-rank consort like you. Her face is forgettable, which is a compliment. Her embroidery is flawless, which is a weapon. You save her from an accidental candle spill one afternoon. She saves you from drinking wine laced with hawthorn bark, dangerous in early pregnancy. You never speak of these things. You start trading favors like musicians swap verses, wordlessly, rhythmically, always on key. She lends you a handmaid for a day. You send her dried kumquats. No notes, no names, just understanding. But alliances in the harem are fragile, like lacquered eggs. You've seen them break. Lady Shu once shared everything with Lady Chen. Combs, gossip, even the same inkstone. But the moment Lady Shu was summoned twice in a week, Lady Chen's smile went stiff. Within 3 days, Shu's chamber was relocated to the far west wing. Plumbing repairs, they said. She never returned. So you keep your alliance small, quiet, practically invisible. Sometimes it isn't with fellow concubines. Sometimes it's a servant. You befriend an elderly tea steward who can recite lines from obscure odes. You laugh at his jokes. You compliment his kneeling posture. One day, he wordlessly swaps your cup before you drink. No explanation. You never ask why. Later, you find out another girl had diarrhea for 3 days. You add him to your invisible circle. One evening, you send a silk sachet to a low-ranking court scribe, just a thank you, embroidered with plum blossoms, no perfume, no message. The next week, your name reappears on the rota. Coincidence? Perhaps. But palace life runs on unacknowledged strings. Tug gently, carefully, quietly. You learn how to write poems that say nothing directly, but imply everything. The sparrow and the reed trade glances only when the wind leans east. A few girls begin mimicking your metaphors. You stop using them. You craft a new method, leave a single plum petal on a bench, fold the corner of a napkin, wear 2 jade bangles instead of 1. These are codes. You and Lady Min agree on 10 of them over one long, silent afternoon in the embroidery hall. Historians often describe the harem as a nest of vipers. They're not wrong, but what they miss is the intimacy of conspiracy, how even the most guarded women sometimes lean in each other, not out of trust, but out of exhaustion. Because being alone in here, that's how they break you. A quirky tidbit. Some concubines believe that carrying a mirror shard in your sash could reflect ill intent and send it back. You don't know if it works. But you tuck one in anyway. Sometimes, alliances are less about strategy and more about kindness disguised as calculation. A maid drops a tray. You help her pick it up. She returns the favor a week later by warning you not to sit beside the lily vase in the banquet hall. Bad positioning, she says. Turns out, that seat belonged to the Empress's cousin's niece. Sitting there would have been over-familiar. You smile. You move. You remember. You keep building. But you never write anything down. No scrolls. No records. Only patterns, only signals. And when a new girl arrives, fresh-faced, trembling, too eager, You and Lady Min make a silent decision. No contact. She's too obvious. Too loud in her ambition. Sure enough, within 10 days, she's reassigned to the Silkworm House. To improve discipline, they say. You watch her leave with her sleeves fluttering like wounded wings. One day, you might be her. That's the truth every alliance avoids. But tonight, you light a small lantern and share a plate of candied lotus root with Lady Min. No conversation, just shared breath. The comfort of someone sitting near enough to remind you you're still human. For now, because in the court of Qin, friendship is a performance. But sometimes, performing it well enough is the closest thing you get to the real thing. It's the Mid-Autumn Festival, or, as you've come to think of it, the great performance of forced joy. The palace is blooming with activity, lanterns shaped like cranes, lotuses, and oversized peaches are strung across the eaves. Musicians tune their flutes in the courtyards. Tables groan under pyramids of mooncakes, bowls of candied walnuts, and jellied fruits so polished they reflect the flickering lamps above. And you're practicing your smile in the mirror again, because tonight, the Emperor will appear in public, and every concubine, no matter how pregnant, homesick, or quietly unraveling, will be expected to radiate graceful delight. You are dressed in a robe of embroidered silver clouds, technically a neutral pattern, though you caught the Empress eyeing it earlier. Just to be safe, you pair it with modest gold earrings. Your hair is pinned with plum blossoms, real ones. They're wilting already. You don't sit at the Emperor's table. Of course not. That's reserved for the most favored consorts, the Empress, and a few high-ranking relatives. You sit at the long crescent-shaped bench on the eastern edge of the pavilion, alongside the other second and third-rank women. You are a flower in a bouquet of flowers, trying not to wilt first. The music begins. Dancers swirl through incense fog. Laughter bubbles like pearls in wine. Somewhere down the table, someone recites a poem. Applause follows. You sip your tea, nod politely, smile at the appropriate times. This is court survival by choreography. A few girls get tipsy, whether by accident or strategy. You can't tell. One giggles too loudly. The Empress's fan lowers half an inch. The girls soon escorted away. You cross your ankles delicately and look toward the moon. A safe move. The Emperor arrives late, flanked by officials and attendants. When he steps into the light, every woman straightens, smooths, quiets. He barely glances at the gathering. You watch as he listens to a performance of the rainbow skirt and feathered jacket dance. You know the dancer, a fourth-rank girl named Ping, graceful as mist. She rehearsed for weeks. When she finishes, there is polite applause. The Emperor nods once. It is enough to elevate her entire family. But the joy in her eyes dims quickly. She knows. Tonight's favor is tomorrow's pressure. The Empress offers a toast, and everyone echoes her words. You raise your cup with practiced elegance. Fingers curved just so. The moon reflects in your tea. You wonder if it looks back. A quirky festival detail. During the mid-autumn banquet, it's tradition to write a wish on a slip of paper and float it in the koi pond. Some say the Emperor reads them. Most know better. You write nothing, but you watch. Lady Min folds hers into a tiny paper crane. She doesn't show you what it says. Later, a servant accidentally drops one of the wishes. It lands at your feet. You glance down. The ink is smudged, but two characters remain. Don't forget. You don't touch it. After the banquet, you are expected to visit the Lantern Walk, a series of narrow garden paths lit by hundreds of tiny lights, each shaped like zodiac animals. The walk is designed for elegance, not navigation. You step carefully, mindful of loose stones and trailing hems. Lady Jo slips on a peach pit and lands hard. Two girls laugh behind their sleeves. A eunuch helps her up. Her rank won't recover. You pretend you didn't see. Farther down the path, the Emperor pauses beside the tiger lantern. He glances once in your direction. You bow. He does not stop. You don't expect him to. Because tonight isn't about him. Tonight is about appearance, about harmony, about performing contentment so convincingly that you almost forget the dread beneath it. Historians often romanticize palace festivals, describing them as luxurious celebrations of culture, poetry, beauty, and yes, they are that. But they are also trials by firelight, tests of emotional endurance, competitions disguised as ceremonies. You know a girl who vomited from nerves before last year's festival. She wasn't seen again. You return to your chamber long after midnight. Your feet ache. Your smile muscles twitch. Your tea has long since gone cold. You sit at your mirror, peel the wilted blossoms from your hair, and stare at your reflection. Did you look happy enough? Did you bow at the right time? Did you exist beautifully, as expected? A handmaid asks if you'd like more tea. You shake your head. You are too tired to pretend to be delighted. Even the moon looks tired. And somewhere in the next wing over, someone is probably still smiling because here in the palace, joy is mandatory, whether you feel it or not. There is no trial more dangerous in the palace than being noticed at the wrong time, especially when you forget to bow deeply enough, or when your sleeve brushes the sleeve of someone ranked higher, or when you wear earrings one hair's width too elaborate for a third-rank consort on a Tuesday. Your punishment? The Silent Garden? You've heard about it. Everyone has. It's where they send girls who need reminding, not exile, not prison, just correction. A place without mirrors, without music, without voices. A place that isn't quite a punishment, because no one ever calls it that, but still leaves your nerves shivering and your soul a few threads lighter. Your crime? A moment of hesitation. During a courtyard ceremony honoring the late emperor's mother, you stepped forward half a breath too soon, before the empress had fully finished her turn. A flutter, a sliver of movement, so small it felt like nothing. But someone saw. Someone always sees. Later that evening, a eunuch arrives with a tight smile and a scroll. You are to reflect on your conduct, he says softly. The silent garden has been prepared. You say nothing. You bow. You pack a single robe. They lead you out under moonlight. The silent garden is not far. That's the eerie thing. It's right there, behind the willow grove, bordered by low stone walls and white gravel paths that crunch underfoot like broken bones. The chamber is small, windowless, a single mat, a basin, a stool, no attendants, no candles. You are alone. You're not told how long you'll stay. You're not given tasks. You're simply left with your thoughts and the knowledge that someone, somewhere, is watching to see how well you handle being unseen. The first day, you count breaths. The second day, you listen for birds that never sing. The third day, you try to remember the names of every girl you've seen vanish from the court. You lose track after 12. You begin to unravel slightly. But that's part of the process. The silent garden is not meant to punish your body. It's designed to scrape at your mind, to make you question your place, your memory, your worth. You remember a story. A consort once left the silent garden after 10 days and never smiled again. They said it made her too still, too delicate to serve tea, too quiet to laugh convincingly. She was reassigned to the records hall. You practice smiling in the dark. Historians still argue whether such forms of soft punishment existed in the Qin harem or if they were dramatized in later imperial texts. But anyone who has spent more than a season in the court knows the truth. The worst punishment is the one no one admits is punishment. You aren't beaten. You aren't banished. You're just erased from the noise. And when you return, no one asks where you were. Lady Min gives you a glance. Just one, and that's enough. You're back. But not quite. You're quieter now. More careful. Your sleeves hang just a little lower. Your bows linger a second longer. Your laughter floats more gently, just above a whisper. You do not speak unless directly addressed. You wait 3 full seconds after the Empress rises before you dare move. You are, in short, perfect. And yet, the experience haunts you. You start sleeping with a hand on your chest, as though pressing your heart back in place. You wake at dawn, convinced someone has entered your chamber. You keep a sliver of sandalwood bark under your tongue. A calming trick you learned from the tea steward. A quirky practice. Some girls wear bells on their slippers to chime away missteps. You consider it, then decide silence is safer. You are watched more closely now. The Empress sends you a poem. 7 characters, brush-stroked in black. The branch that bends survives the storm. You bow when it's delivered, but you don't smile because you understand now. You are not being punished. You are being shaped, molded, filed down into something quiet, obedient, harmless, but not invisible, never invisible again. You return to the court as they intended, softer, sweeter, more agreeable, but deep inside the part of you they tried to smooth away, something hard has settled, something like resolve. You return from the silent garden just in time for gift season. It's the Qin Emperor's name day, and that means one thing: a storm of tribute, jade lions, miniature landscapes carved from coral, scrolls of rare poetry, even a music box that plays the Book of Songs, off-key, but impressively engineered. Most of these gifts don't come from the concubines. They come from ministers, nobles, and regional governors, men with too much money and too much fear. But inside the harem, you're also expected to contribute something thoughtful, not grand, not flashy, just memorable. So you prepare a painting. It's a quiet mountain scene, a single pine leaning toward a waterfall. Mist, curling between peaks. You spend 4 days on it, hunched over rice paper, brush trembling just slightly from too many sleepless nights. You include no signature. You let the scroll speak for you. It's submitted with dozens of others to a lacquered box near the throne room. Whether the emperor sees it himself or not, you'll never know. But 2 days later, you receive a gift in return. A bracelet, black jade, smooth, cold, heavy, no note, just a gesture. You wear it only in private. The official gifts, though those are different, they rain down from above like gold-tipped chains. not to please you, to bind you. You are now the proud owner of a pair of peacock feather fans, you're allergic, a set of lacquered combs from Shu, you already have finer ones, a miniature golden swing for your non-existent pet bird, and then comes the most dangerous gift, a silk robe, woven with phoenixes and trailing clouds, far too fine for your rank. You stare at it in silence. It's beautiful. It's a trap. You do not wear it. You do not touch it. You send it, unworn, back to the seamstress with a polite note that reads, "Too fine for one of my station. I remain humbly grateful." Your handmaid looks at you like you've dodged an arrow. Because you probably have. A girl once accepted a robe that didn't match her title. She wore it to a garden party. The next week, she was reassigned to the outer chamber cleaning duties. For confusion of etiquette. Here, gifts are gilded chains. They sparkle. They choke. Even praise is dangerous. At a banquet, a minor lord compliments your voice during a poetry recitation. His wife, a cousin of the empress, laughs too sweetly afterward. You pretend not to notice. You sit out the next musical rehearsal, claiming mild fatigue. You let the other girls shine. You are learning. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is step back just enough. Historians love to write about the Qin Dynasty's brutal efficiency. The walls, the weights, the laws carved into bronze. But within the harem, the cruelty is rarely direct. It's ornate, wrapped in silk, dipped in honey. One girl receives a basket of early plums. Her chamber is reassigned the next day, closer to the latrines. For ventilation, they say, another is given a new inkstone with imperial seals. No one speaks to her for a week. You begin developing rules. If the gift is too practical, it's safe. If it's ornamental, hesitate. If it's both, burn it. A quirky tradition, during name day week, it's common to send humble offerings to the empress as well. You choose something carefully dull, pressed mulberry leaves with embroidery thread, enough to suggest thoughtfulness without flair. She sends back a sprig of dried osmanthus, neutral, non-committal, just the way you like it. Still, the court is buzzing. Rumors are flitting like dragonflies. One girl may be pregnant. Another has fainted twice this week. A new consort has arrived from the northwest, rumored to be a general's niece with unnerving cheekbones. You smile at that. It's amazing what qualifies as threatening here. Lady Min sends you a folded fan with a single character inked inside. Quiet. You understand. The week after gift season is often the most volatile. Favor breeds envy. Envy breeds accidents. So you stay inside. You tend to your bonsai. You brush your hair 100 strokes each night. You speak only when spoken to. And when you finally do leave your chamber, you wear your plainest robe, but on your wrist, you wear the black jade bracelet just once, just long enough to remind them you are still in the game. It starts with a whisper. She's lost favor. The girl in question, Lady Hua, a second-rank consort with cheekbones sharp enough to cut glass and a laugh like tinkling bells. 3 months ago, she was summoned by the emperor twice in 1 week. Now, no one has seen her for 10 days. The rot begins quickly in the Qin court. Today you are watching it in real time. At breakfast, her name is no longer called first. At the embroidery hall, her usual seat is taken by a new girl with trembling hands and a gold hairpin she shouldn't be wearing. At the evening recital, her zither is replaced by a colder instrument, silence. You've seen it before. The fall of a favorite is never loud. It doesn't come with screams or shattered porcelain. It comes with absence. And worse, forgetting. At first, they avoid speaking her name out of fear. Later, they stop because it's no longer necessary. You pass her in the southern corridor days later. She's still here, physically, hair unadorned. Robe plain, eyes hollow. You both bow. She does not meet your gaze. Later, your handmaid murmurs, "She smiled too much, too sure of herself." That's all it takes. Historians often write about the rise of imperial favorites, concubines who held power, bore sons, shifted dynasties, but they rarely linger on what happens when the light moves on, when beauty ages, or charm becomes familiarity, or worse, when someone new arrives, because there is always someone new. She shows up 2 weeks later, the new girl, Lady Leon, soft-spoken, eyes like moonstone, said to play the guqin so beautifully it moved a palace guard to tears. Whether that's true or just well-placed gossip, doesn't matter. What matters is how quickly she rises. She's summoned within the week. Her hair ornaments double in number, her sleeves get longer, her laughter gets lighter. You know the signs. So does everyone else. The court doesn't speak of replacement directly. It never says, "You are no longer favored." It just redirects a schedule adjustment, a relocation of quarters, a missing name on the silk scroll. Lady Hua's room is moved near the garden wall. It's colder there, fewer attendants, worse tea. You hear her cough echo across the pebbled path one morning and think, it will not echo for long. And you? You remain in the middle, not forgotten, not favored, not falling, safe. It is a strange kind of power, a position where you are useful but not dazzling, obedient but not alarming. You are the background music, the flicker of incense, the brush stroke no one comments on, but everyone would notice if it vanished. Still, you feel the pressure. You adjust everything. Your tone, half a note higher. Your posture, straighter, but not rigid. Your poetry, less romantic, more filial. Your smile, timed like a bell. One misstep, and the fall begins. You hear stories. A girl who tried to win back favor with a bold gift. Jasmine oil from a forbidden province. She was seen packing 3 nights later. Another who composed a song so poignant it made 2 ministers weep. The emperor, reportedly, did not listen. A quirky superstition begins to circulate. Never sit facing west after sunset. The west, after all, is where the sun goes to die. Girls begin shifting their tea tables. You do too. Why tempt fate? Lady Min whispers to you one night during embroidery practice, voice low enough to get lost in the rustle of thread. You're balanced right where you need to be. Do not tilt. You nod. You feel it too. But something shifts. The emperor glances at you during a poetry recitation. Just once. Just briefly. But it's a glance. And in the palace? A glance is a match to dry silk. Lady Leon notices. So does the Empress. So does everyone. And suddenly, you are no longer safe again. That night, your name is added to the rota. You do not smile, because you understand now. The higher the rise, the quieter the fall. And you've heard enough silence to know what comes next. You're summoned at dusk. Again. 3 times this month now. The rota ink isn't even dry before the whispers start. She's climbing. She's expecting again. She's aiming for elevation. You walk slowly this time, past lanterns flickering like goldfish, and down corridors that once seemed vast, but now feel too narrow. The silks on your body are lighter, finer, stitched with clouds and cranes. Nothing garish, nothing presumptuous, but still, elevated. The guards nod without expression. The eunuchs bow slightly deeper than last time. You are becoming noticeable. This is dangerous, because now, your unborn child is no longer a mystery. He is a hypothesis, a potential prince, a future threat. Your first pregnancy went unnoticed until you were showing. But now, you can feel the weight of scrutiny with every step, not just from jealous consorts or handmaids eager to switch allegiances. From the court, even the Empress's glances have changed. No longer just measured, but calculating. You remember her words. A boy would change everything, not just for you. That wasn't approval. That was a reminder. Because once a son is confirmed, you're no longer just a woman. You are a faction. And every faction has enemies. There are rumors of a document circulating, an unsigned memorandum suggesting new protections for the emperor's unborn children, and, more critically, their mothers. Historians still argue whether Qin Shi Huang ever named a formal heir during his lifetime. The records are vague. Perhaps he didn't trust his sons. Perhaps he feared assassination. Perhaps, like the rest of the court, he simply played delay as strategy. But for you, delay is not an option. Your body is changing. The court knows. The Empress knows. The ministers know. You begin to hear things. Whispers of a visit from a foreign envoy who asked after the mother of the emperor's next son. Whispers of a midwife being replaced. No reason given. Whispers of Lady Lian's tea being laced with crushed magnolia bark. She vomited blood. They say it was spoiled fruit. You smile politely at everyone. You drink only from covered cups. You sleep in your robe, just in case you need to flee. And you keep your secrets tightly wrapped beneath your embroidered sash. One morning, Lady Min slips you a note, folded, blank on the outside. Inside, heirs draw swords before they can walk. It's not poetry. It's a warning. You burn it by moonlight. Then you go to the temple and make an offering, not to the gods, but to the ancestor tablets, where names that no longer speak still watch. You leave dried lotus seeds, ginkgo, and an inkstone rubbed clean. A eunuch bows as you exit. He does not speak. That night, you're moved to a new chamber. It's larger, more ornate, too close to the emperor's wing, too far from your allies. This is promotion. This is danger. They send you a nursemaid trained in pulse-taking. She says nothing, but every day she presses your wrist and frowns thoughtfully. You wonder what she reports. You wonder if she's even a nursemaid at all. A quirky superstition. If a concubine dreams of bamboo breaking, it's considered a bad omen for the child. You start dreaming it every night. You don't tell anyone. You just start tying red silk knots above your windows. Your handmaid finds a powdery residue near your tea tray one morning. You do not panic. You simply thank her and ask her to prepare new leaves from a locked jar. You send no notes. You accept no gifts. You offer no poems. You survive. Then, one morning, the Empress sends for you. She offers you candy ginger. She says, "You are showing grace under pressure." You bow. She smiles. "You'll need to continue doing so." You understand. This is not support. This is not threat. This is both. Because once the emperor dies, and he will, the palace will become a game board. And your son, if born, if healthy, if lucky, will be a piece. So will you. You return to your chamber and sit for a long time, unmoving, watching the incense curl toward the ceiling. You whisper nothing. You cry nothing. You just wait. Because this is the point where the game changes, and no one survives the game by playing too early. You do not remember the moment when you stopped being afraid. Not exactly. There was no single flash of clarity, no triumphant monologue in the mirror, just a slow, cold settling, like sediment in a pond. One day, the fear was still there, but it no longer controlled your breath. It simply sat quietly. Maybe it's the child, maybe it's exhaustion, or maybe it's the realization that even the empress, the ministers, the emperor himself, they are all trapped. 2. Caged by ceremony, by legacy, by invisible rules written in sighs and jade and blood. Your belly is heavy now. The child is due soon. Everyone walks more carefully around you. Handmaids scurry ahead to check steps. Eunuchs lower their voices. Gifts arrive daily. Lotus root soup, bracelets of protective cinnabar beads, tiny woven shoes. Some are genuine. Some are performative. One might be poisoned. You trust nothing, but you accept everything because refusal draws attention. A whisper reaches you. A consort with no name attempted to send word to her brother outside the palace. She was found. Her brother was never heard from again. Neither was she. You write no letters. Your world has narrowed to the size of your breath. And then, finally, you give birth. At dawn. Behind closed doors. Attended by a rotating staff of midwives, scribes, and court physicians who sign documents even as you bleed. You are not allowed to scream. You don't. It's a boy. Even before they say it, by the sudden flurry of silk, the midwife's eyes widening, the tight smile of the scribe who immediately disappears with the scroll. The empress arrives within the hour. She stands at the edge of the chamber, expression unreadable, dressed in mourning white. Not for you, for what this moment could mean. She looks at the baby. She looks at you. Then she says, "He will need strong ancestors." You nod. You say nothing. You are still bleeding. Later, the emperor visits. Briefly, he does not touch the child. He does not speak to you. He simply stands for a long, long moment, then nods and leaves. But the implications ripple outward. Within a week, your rank is raised. Your chambers double in size. You are given a personal physician, 4 new attendants, and a food taster. Your robes are changed from crane motifs to dragons, smaller ones, not yet imperial, but close enough to raise eyebrows. You are no longer just a consort. You are the mother of a prince, and that title, for all its beauty, is a battlefield. Historians still debate what became of the emperor's children. The Qin dynasty did not last long after his death. Some princes vanished into obscurity. Others were manipulated into early graves. Records were burned. Names were altered. The boy you hold may one day rule, or he may be erased before his 2nd birthday. But you have done the impossible. You survived. You outlasted rivals, sidestepped poison, learned to smile and not smile at the same time. You whispered when it mattered. You remained still when it didn't. You played your role so perfectly, they almost forgot you were acting. You hold your son. He is tiny, breathing softly. His hand curls around your finger like it belongs there. You do not cry. You simply hum a song from your childhood, one you never dared sing here, Until now, because tonight, for the first time in years, no one is watching. The lights in the palace begin to dim. Lanterns flicker into golden shadows, one by one, until the corridors are soaked in silence and silk. You lie back beneath a canopy of gauze, the night air thick with jasmine. The weight of the world finally shifted. Outside, the moon glides behind a cloud. The wind moves through the pines like a lullaby. You've survived the palace. You've survived its whispers, its poisons, its games. You've played your part so well they crowned you without a crown. You are no longer the girl who stepped through the crimson gates with trembling hands. You're something softer, stronger, wiser. You've mastered the art of invisibility and used it to be seen. The child beside you shifts gently in sleep. His breath is small and steady. You trace the shape of his future with your eyes and hope he never learns what it cost you to get here. Or maybe, one day, he will. And he'll carry that knowing like a talisman. The palace will go on, with its rituals and rankings and endless seasons. The scrolls will unfurl. New girls will arrive. Names will rise and fade like smoke. But tonight, none of that matters. Tonight, it's just you, still, quiet, safe. The curtain falls, and somewhere in the garden, the first cicada sings. End of script. Sweet dreams.